Hey guys, and welcome to another great Saturday morning Mega Wellness. We are excited to have you. It is once again Saturday Mega Wellness with Omega Sports. I'm Del. I want to thank you for joining. Today we've got a great show. I've got Dr. Gangopadhyay. Hello, good morning.
Hi, how are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm doing good. I know you are streaming from Winston-Salem this morning. I want to thank you for joining. I know this morning you had a little bit of a switcheroo. You were going to stream at home and then a little bit of an internet issue, and now you are in your office in Winston, right?
Yes, classic last minute change up, but just got to go with the flow. So I'm really excited to be here today.
Well, if there's one thing that I've learned with this show, and then of course all the great folks over at Wake Forest Baptist Health, which of course you're a part of that fantastic system there, you guys definitely are willing to go with the flow when it comes to our new show, our Ask a Doc series. So of course you're joining us today for that Ask a Doc series. You're going to be answering questions on foot and ankle pain, correct?
Correct, yes. So we'll be talking about the whole gamut of foot and ankle pain, especially for those who are trying to be more active.
Well, you know, we're all about being active here at Omega Sports. So I think it's a perfect partnership. Of course, last week we had Dr. Steve Lucy, an orthopedic surgeon. And then today we've got a podiatric surgeon joining us. So, you know, you bring a lot of expertise to the program today, especially when it comes to our runners who sent in a lot of questions today. So I hope you're ready to answer some questions later in the show.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to it.
All right, well, good. Well, let's go ahead and start the show. If you give me a second, I'm going to go ahead and do some Omega news, and then we'll bring you back in, okay, Dr. Gangopadhyay?
Sounds great.
All right, thank you. All right, guys, so again, we're going to have a great show. As you saw, we've got a podiatric surgeon from Wake Forest Baptist Health joining us today, Dr. Gangopadhyay. She is going to be answering a lot of questions you guys sent in when it comes to those foot and ankle pain and injury. We collected a lot of those questions throughout the week when we announced her joining the show, and we will get to that segment a little later in the show, our Ask a Doc series, which of course is presented by Wake Forest Baptist Health. We're happy to have them be a part of our Saturday Mega Wellness. But let's start with some Omega news. So Omega news, you know, as I have said, make sure you're checking your email, make sure you are taking advantage of all the great details that we put in those emails, starting with, you know, we always have some type of offer or some great reason why you should shop in our stores, especially this weekend. We've got a Megaflex coupon that we announced. It's a 20 off of 90. So if you are in our stores, you can take 20 off of 90 off of our running footwear. And of course, if you are not able to get to our store, perhaps you're outside of the North Carolina market or not near one of our stores, you can always shop online where you also can take 20 off of 90. But when you shop online, we're going to let you take it off of the entire purchase. So that's a really big announcement that I want to make sure that you guys are not missing. It's the first thing you see in our newsletter or our emails that we send out. So definitely make sure that you're taking advantage of it. I get to see all the great orders that are coming in where people are taking advantage of our Megaflex coupon. So I appreciate that. We also made some great, we announced some great things that are happening. We've got some fantastic footwear that is now arrived in our stores. Some I'm going to give you a sneak preview of what you'll see in the upcoming week, but I'll just break the news right now. If you are an On Running fan, make sure you're in the stores this weekend before I make a bunch of noise about these shoes. There are some fantastic new Cloud Flows that have hit our stores, some fantastic popular new colors that are in our stores that you can actually go in, try on, ask for that lavender ice color that is out there right now. It's a hot new color that On has put out. I don't have it available to show you right now, but I promise you, you will see a lot of it next week. So this is your preview. If you're an On fan and you want to go ahead and get that shoe right away or go and see that shoe, get with our Active Play experts in our stores and they will grab it for you and show you. I guarantee you this is a hot color that you're not going to want to miss. Our shoe buyer and head of running, Dan Keller, actually sent me a message saying, Del, this is a shoe we've got to turn up some noise on. So in order for us to turn up noise means we have to build a few more extra things. So be on the lookout this week while we turn up the noise on it. But you can certainly go and enjoy the shoe in person in our neighborhood sports stores this weekend. I am going to also talk about our InstaFaves because if I talk about InstaFaves, I'm probably going to tell you some more Omega news. So let's just go ahead and jump into my screen here for my weekly InstaFaves. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen real quick. see if I can do this without messing up anything here. All right, so my InstaFave starts out on our Instagram page. I talked about some new arrivals. I certainly throughout all of our emails and promotions this week, we are talking about some things that we're excited about. And you know, we never miss a chance to talk about our Brooks fans. With our Brooks button, we have exclusive opportunities to make sure that you guys have the latest arrivals when they hit our online availability, when they're in our stores with availability, and then of course, any new special colors or limited editions that we are excited about. So this week, we talked about the fact that Launch 7, which is a very popular shoe that generally is your under $100 shoe that a lot of runners out there really enjoy. Well, we've dropped the price. So it is now currently $74.97. So all Launch 7s in the series are actually now $25 off. I believe it's $25. Yep, $25 off. So you can save more when you are buying the Launch 7. But then included in that sale, we actually, online only, we've added a few of the limited edition lift off collection coming from Brooks. So if you see what's on my screen right now or go to our Instagram page, you will see we've got some fantastic out of this world colorways that are, I will tell you, blowing up right now. In the first couple of days that we launched the Launch 7, no pun intended, when we launched the Launch 7, we actually got to see a lot of folks taking advantage of the new pricing, but also going right into that limited edition. If you are a Brooks fan, you know Mega Sports is always going to do our best to make sure that you have those limited editions. So this is just another one in the history of great limited editions that are probably going to sell out fast. So if you are watching, if you're joining us today and you are a Brooks fan, make sure you're taking advantage of a fantastic running shoe. It's only $74.97. And it is a limited edition, some fun, funky, out of this world colorways that I think will look great on the streets out there. So that's my first InstaFave. I'm going to go ahead and click out of that. And then I am going to share with you a InstaFave that yours truly actually posted. Those are actually my feet slipping into the new Nike Renew Run shoes. I'm so excited I can't even remember the name of it. So I'm going to show you, if you look at the corner here, these are my new Renew runs from Nike. Only $79.99 I paid for it. I mean, a great pricing, or actually I think it's $89.99 that I paid for these. Super light, has all the cushion that you would want in a great running shoe. Had them shipped to me at my home. Go ahead and put my screen back up. And then, of course, in my Mega Sports socks, because I had to represent there, slipped them on and went for a quick run / walk. It was a little hot for me, so I ended up running less than I walked. I did do some walking in it, though. But super fantastic, super comfortable. You know, I don't think I've put on a pair of Nike running shoes in a while. I've been really loving my Ons. So it's nice to be able to switch up. And when the price is so good, it's fun to go ahead and just try something new, especially with a brand like Nike. So again, yes, the price is only $89.99. They are available in stores and online, so definitely check it out. Again, that is the new Nike Renew Run collection that we have available. Those are, of course, the men's colorway, and if you're looking for the women's colorway, it's super funky, super fantastic. Check your emails. We've been posting about it, and it's on Instagram, of course, that you can see and check out those colors. And then I wanted to just, once again, make a little bit of noise on our new podcast series. There's my screen there. You guys have made this our most popular post this week. Anytime I talk about Clio, or anytime we show love and support of anything that Clio is working on at Mega Sports, you guys really respond. So our market leader and apparel buyer, Clio, made an announcement a week ago about her new women's only podcast. We reminded folks to be on the lookout for some exciting new updates on that podcast. And then, of course, you guys blew up and you made it our most popular Insta post and Facebook post of the week. So I wanted to do another quick shout out to Clio. We have got some fantastic things lined up. She's got some fantastic guests, both from the brand perspective and the community perspective, where she will be talking about all things women's health, wellness, women's sports, just some fun, exciting new podcast initiatives that we have planned that Cleo will help host and share with you guys in our community. So we're super excited about that. So those are my Insta faves this week. I'll just scroll lightly so you guys can see. I see John and Charlotte had a quick repost there. He always represents Omega Sports. When he's out there, he is a run happy enthusiast and team member. I always love it when he's inspiring others to get out there running, especially because he's always sporting that Head Sweats Omega Sports hat. So I want to thank him for that. I want to give you guys heads up. Be on the lookout for some news that's coming out with John. I know a lot of folks are excited about the new Ghost 13 that is coming out. We've got a lot of new things coming out on August 1st. That's the official release date, but John's going to help us and do a quick review of the Ghost 13. He is currently running in his Ghost 12s, and he can't wait to try out his new Ghost 13s. So be on the lookout for some great content coming from our Charlotte runner, John, out there, who is representing both the Run Happy team with Brooks and always sporting his Omega Sports gear. All right, those are my Insta faves. I'm going to go ahead and let's jump into our first wellness segment. As you guys know, when I talk about Insta faves, I'm always talking about Dr. Clay Sankey from True Motion Therapy, one of the most popular Instagram channels that I follow, because not only does he give great insights and advice for runners, but really anyone that's out there that's maybe needing some help when it comes to back pain or joint pain, when it comes to learning how to create movements that can help with that so that you don't have to go to a chiropractor. I just think it's a great channel, and I'm always happy to share great content from him. So today, for those folks that maybe are, I'm not one of them, but for those folks that are out there that are maybe scared of cracking your back or going to a chiropractor and getting adjustments where it makes that popping noise, I'm actually a fan of it. So I actually like watching videos where people get adjusted and I can hear it. But Dr. Sankey shared with us on a previous show how there are folks that are maybe a little bit skittish or a little bit scared of that. So today's video, he talks about when you're not a fan of that, how a chiropractor may help you, relieve some back pressure and some back pain without having to do those major adjustments where you hear that popping noise. So let's go ahead and watch a video from Dr. Clay Sankey of True Motion Therapy.
For those of you that don't like to have your back adjusted or popped, we have many other options for treating your low back. This is one of them. This is called flexion distraction. Essentially, the table is moving and opening up those little joints in the low back. So we're getting a nice lengthening and decompression of the spine. The nice thing about this technique is we can manually work to loosen up some of those joints, but we can also loosen up some of the muscles in the low back as well. So as this table moves, we can work through these erector spinae muscles, the muscles that go on either side of the spine. So as the table lowers, that muscle is going to lengthen, and we can work our way through and really help loosen up some of those tight muscles that can contribute to low back pain. Another important muscle in this group is the QL. It sits here on the side of the spine, and it's one of those kind of side bendy muscles. So we can try to stretch it by leaning to the side, but one great way is by using this table to open up that muscle. So we're going to bend the table away as we distract it, and we get a nice opening up of that QL muscle. So we're working the joints, we're working the muscles without getting any of the pops or snaps that some people may be afraid of. So this is a great gentle way to work through low back pain.
All right, well, I want to thank Dr. Sankey once again for a fantastic, share of information. As I want to make sure that you guys are watching and you're seeing this stuff. When Dr. Sankey is also, sharing his information, you're also getting insights into his office and his practice, and the fact that he is investing. He's a locally owned, small business owner with his own practice in the South Charlotte area, and he is investing in some of the best technology that's out there in chiropractic. I want to give a shout out to Chuck, who right when the video started, I saw a question that said, can you please post a link to Dr. Sankey? So of course we wanted to make sure that you do that, but also Chuck, make sure you follow him at True Motion. If you're on Instagram, you can go to @True Motion and follow. He's got all his great videos available for you, so that, two things that you can learn from him is, one, you'll learn more about, other opportunities when you're not seeing a chiropractor, to kind of help yourself or to know what to expect when you go to see a chiropractor. Or of course, you can go to his website, truemotiontherapy.com. So thanks, Chuck, for watching today. We appreciate it. So again, I want to encourage you guys to follow Dr. Sankey. He's a regular here on our Saturday Mega Wellness, and we're happy to have him as a wellness expert partner. And then, of course, today we're going to spend a lot of time talking about foot and ankle pain with our new series presented by Wake Forest Baptist Health, and that is our Ask a Doc series. If you remember last week, we had Dr. Steve Lucy from Wake Forest Baptist Health, an orthopedic surgeon, talk about sports injury pain. Today, we're going to be kind of bringing it down to our foundation when it comes to foot and ankle with our wonderful guest today, Dr. Gangopadhyay. She is with Wake Forest Baptist Health, and I want to give you guys a chance to get to know her a little bit more, and then we'll bring her on and we'll learn more about what she does at Wake Forest Baptist Health, and then get right to your questions.
My name is Paula Gangopadhyay. I'm a podiatrist here at Wake Forest Baptist Health, and I specialize in foot and ankle surgery. I'm from North Carolina and attended the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. After that, I went to medical school at Temple University and completed my surgical residency at the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia. So after being away for nearly a decade, I'm very excited to relocate back to the state with my family and be here in the Winston-Salem area. My clinical specialties include correction of forefoot deformities, which are bunions, hammer toe correction, as well as midfoot and hindfoot correction of congenital and acquired disorders. I also treat traumatic injuries and fractures of the foot and ankle as well. I chose a career in podiatry to be specialized in an area that's very important to being mobile and active. Through podiatry, I get to be engaged with patients of all ages, children to senior citizens. I work with patients that are diabetics, as well as athletes, and those who have sustained a trauma or a fracture to the lower extremity too. My patient care philosophy is centered on effective communication and understanding the values, needs, and choices of each patient. Understanding the patient themselves is just as important as understanding the pathology that I'm treating. I like to discuss all options with the patient, both surgical and non-surgical, and take those desires of the patient and integrate them into the treatment plan. What I enjoy most about working with patients is really getting to know each of my patients. They all are very unique in that they have a different background and a history, and I like to get to know them on a more personal level. Besides just treating them and correcting the deformity, it's important to remember that I'm sitting across from another individual.
Gangopadhyay. Again, welcome, Dr. Gangopadhyay, for joining us today. You are streaming from Winston-Salem, is that correct?
I am, yes. I'm in our Winston-Salem office today, actually.
That's right. Yeah, we had a little switcheroo in the beginning, so thanks for being flexible. I know you went from your home quickly over to your office to make sure that we could go ahead and stream. Well, first of all, thanks again for joining us. I know we've got a lot of questions that we're going to get to, but I want to spend some time getting to know you a little bit more. First thing I want to talk about kind of the role that you have. So you are a podiatric surgeon. So that's, last week we talked to an orthopedic surgeon, but you are a podiatric surgeon. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that actually is and what you actually do?
Sure, absolutely. So I am, in essence, a foot and ankle specialist. So my training is geared and specified to this area of the body. A lot of times in orthopedics, many of our orthopedic surgeon colleagues are specialists, and they're medical doctors that treat the entire body in some cases, as general orthopedists do, or they might be further specialized in trauma or total joints and things of that nature. So we are really in one area of the body and look to kind of treat the different ailments that can occur there.
Right. So most people may be familiar with a podiatrist, but you are what I guess, and tell me if I'm wrong, you're a podiatrist that specializes in the surgery aspect of the foot and ankle. Is that correct?
Sure, there's a wide variety in terms of podiatry and podiatric medicine. So some people do surgery of the foot. Some people do surgery of the foot and ankle. And then there's also a lot of non-operative management of pathology. So I like to think of many of my podiatry colleagues and podiatric surgeons as specialists that many times do surgery of this entire region.
Got it. Got it. And then I heard in the video, which was done very well, I heard you say in the intro video that you treat forefoot deformities, midfoot and hindfoot, both congenital and acquired disorders. Give us a little
Yes.
bit more insight on kind of learning and understanding what that means, because there are maybe folks watching that say, "Oh, that's me," or they may say, "I'm not sure if that is me."
Right, right. So there's a lot of different deformities that people can have. They could range from bunions and hammer toes. They could be long-standing, such as chronic issues like arthritis of the midfoot, or deformities of the back of the foot and the ankle too. So there are things that are acute, that suddenly come on, like a strain or sprain, and then there's other things that are long-standing. Maybe their foot type causes numerous problems in other areas of that entire complex.
Yeah, and then I heard you say traumatic injuries as well. So you're talking at this point fractures or more severe pain and injury, correct?
Absolutely. So these are more the acute or sudden onset type things. They can also be linked to our foot type, whether we have a flat foot or a very high arched foot. So it could be anything from strains or sprains of ligaments and tendons to a fracture of the foot and ankle. And in some cases, those are treated conservatively, and in other cases, they may require surgery.
Yeah, and then I think it's important to note that when we talk about your patients that you're seeing and the colleagues that you work with are seeing, you're seeing a wide range of patients from different age groups all the way through, injuries maybe related to sports, and then all the way through to more injuries that are related to their overall kind of health.
Yes, that's probably one of the most rewarding aspects of my career is being able to deal with patients that range from children and adolescents to adults or senior citizens, like I mentioned. So that offers a wide range of different activity levels as well. And so I really enjoy that.
Yeah, and I loved in your video when you said that one of the reasons that you got into podiatric medicine and surgery was really because you have a desire to be that source or that support to help people stay moving, stay active. Tell us why, beyond just that, why that's so important to you.
Sure. So I'm very passionate about helping people reach their full potential. And when it comes down to it, we're oftentimes take our lower extremity for granted, right? But in essence, our lower extremity helps us do our life's work. That's provide for ourselves and our family. We also use it to enjoy our lives and recreation, whether that is being outdoors and enjoying your hobbies or being with your family and your loved ones. So at the link between those 2 points is the intersection of your independence and your happiness. And so I find it very rewarding to work with people to help them be able to be independent and happy and live their life to their fullest.
I love hearing that. I think that is one. I'm going to do a quick shout out to you and all your fans that are out there. Justin's already giving you some love on our Facebook channel here. Great answer. I love the fact that we're not just talking about getting people back into sports. I think, if you're joining an Omega Sports show, that would be probably what most people assume we're saying, right? Like, we want you to be active. We want you to run many more miles. We want you to go as fast as you possibly can. But what you're really highlighting here, as a superior kind of, expert, commenting on this, it's that this is really about independence and enjoying life to its fullest, because it really is the foundational, in a lot of ways, foundational ways that people just get around and be able to take care of themselves.
Absolutely. People forget about that, I think, a lot of times, and your activity level could be something simple, or your goals may be very simple, or they may be very challenging and you're trying to climb a mountain, So I always keep that in mind when I'm dealing with my different patients.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we'll talk about that even more when we jump into some of those questions. I see some questions already popping up in our comments. So don't worry, we'll get to your questions that are in our comments. But first, let's go a little bit more. So let's talk about your role at Wake Forest Baptist Health, because I say podiatric surgeon, but you actually carry a lot of, or I should say, wear a lot of hats there.
Yes, I do. This is a great question. I actually have come to realize as I'm talking to you that I definitely wear a couple different hats. So first and foremost, I'm a physician and a surgeon, so my focus is especially on patient care, and I'm intimately involved with that and very passionate about that. But also, in addition to that, education is a big part of what I do. So I work very closely with my colleagues and some amazing residents as well to work towards advancing their education and resident education and their surgical training too. And then I also serve as our research director of our podiatry section, where I work closely with my podiatric and orthopedic colleagues to advance the field of foot and ankle surgery research. We work also collaboratively with other specialties to really bring this to the forefront. So being at Wake Forest Baptist Health, a health system that's really focused at bringing cutting edge technology and services to our patients, primarily, but also having that added focus at advancing research at being known for it at a national and international level is an amazing way to bridge all these interests together. And I'm very fortunate to be here.
Well, and I think that Wake Forest Baptist Health is very fortunate to have you. And then, of course, you're in the Winston-Salem market. So I want to talk a little bit more about kind of where, if folks are in Winston-Salem, certainly learning a little bit more about where they can see you and your colleagues and getting to know kind of the level of expertise that you're really bringing to the overall system.
Sure. What's kind of neat about this is there's probably people viewing that are from Winston-Salem, or they may be around some of the surrounding areas too. Just last week, you were talking to Dr. Lucy from orthopedics, an outstanding surgeon, and with that same thought, I began to realize that Wake Forest Baptist Health covers a wide geographic area too. So just in line with orthopedics, podiatry services are offered here in Winston-Salem, as well as High Point, Davie County, and then also in Lexington, North Carolina. So right now I'm in our Winston-Salem office right off of Country Club Road. But in addition to that, I'm also located at Lexington Orthopedics in Lexington, North Carolina. I work with a great set of orthopedic surgeons down there. That's our general orthopedists and PAs, as well as specialized in total joints, upper extremity, and we're located just across from Lexington Medical Center. Our awesome facility just got a brand new facelift, if you will, and brand new ORs too. So we're all enjoying that as well. So I'm very fortunate to work with my podiatric colleagues as well as my orthopedic colleagues too.
That's amazing. And, I know it was important for you to talk about your colleagues. And I know you mentioned Wake Forest being in Lexington. I know that's a source of pride for you. What other things are can you share a success story with us before we jump into some questions? Do you have any immediate success stories that kind of jump ahead that you'd love to share with us?
Sure. I've been very fortunate to get to see a wide array of pathology. So it isn't always someone that I have to operate on. It could be someone that has a really simple need, So anything from dealing with an ingrown toenail to reconstructing an ankle, whatever that may be, I take as a success because I know that every person I'm sitting across from has a specific set of needs or an urgency in their own right. I can think of cases where I've worked collaboratively with my orthopedic colleagues to identify deformities. I can think of a patient who's near and dear to my heart who had undergone multiple knee surgeries in the past at an outside facility. She had difficulty bearing weight on her foot and ankle and had major issues with the ligaments, and her heel did not even purchase the ground. So we worked together and I was able to get her walking again. The same has been the case with some of my diabetic patients where they were at a crossroads of possibly losing their lower limb. And I was able to work closely with them to kind of get them back up to speed and have them walking and still being able to be active. So I've been lucky enough to have a lot of wonderful stories that myself and many of my colleagues share as well.
Well, I love that approach. I love that every need is an important need and can be a success story. Everything I heard you say, from an ingrown toenail to reconstructing an ankle. I mean, you really do cover such a wide array. Again,
Sure.
when it comes to the foot and ankle area, I mean, it is the foundation. I know at Omega Sports, we talk about the fact that, proper fit and making sure that your shoes are the right ones for you. Sometimes I know I used to be a victim of buying for style and maybe
Yes.
not for performance or for comfort. I also hear a lot, and my wife is one of them, that will wear high heels because it's a style thing, but maybe not necessarily the most comfortable. So I think that it's amazing to know that there's a wide range of expertise that both you and your colleagues cover that require some medical attention. And I heard you say some of it is non-surgical, and maybe a lot of it can be non-surgical until that point to get to until it has to actually reach that surgery point, which I think is important that people pay attention to, their foundation. So when people are dealing with foot and ankle pain, Dr. Gangopadhyay, how do they get help? I mean, is this something that you have to be referred to see a specialist? It may be different for different systems, but just for folks watching out there, if they're dealing with some type of pain, what's their best kind of avenue or path to go down?
Yes. Calling in to our call center, calling 716-WAKE and asking to get scheduled. They can oftentimes help you through the registration process. In some cases, insurance may require a referral to a specialist, and in those cases, they would work with you to get that all squared away. But it's actually a pretty easy process. So I think step one is identifying that there is a problem, and then just getting on board. All the rest can be worked out.
I like that. Step one, if you know there's an issue, start asking, start seeking out. It's probably a lot easier than you think it can be.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I know with Dr. Lucy, I'm sure you'll agree, we talked about when you start to notice the pain is probably when you should start asking and seeking out before it gets to the point where now you're dealing with something a little bit more extreme than maybe in the beginning.
Sure. That is probably one of the best pieces of advice, because in some cases, I know I can be like this too. So I'm guilty of just trying to figure it out and pushing through it and moving forward. At a certain level, though, your body is trying to tell you something with the pain. There are certain patients who who might have neuropathy or other issues where they don't have that sensory capability to feel as much pain. But those of us that do, we got to listen to our body a little bit, especially after you initially rest, ice, and elevate, and those things don't help. Then it's time to get in and get seen before it's too far gone, and it makes it more of an issue to treat.
Yeah. I know a lot of us do that kind of self-treatment that I heard you say, rest, ice, and elevate, which are great tools for just general soreness, right? But let's talk about pain. I mean, when folks are now seeking out help, are there ways that maybe they can be smarter about how to describe their pain? Like, what are some things that you either as a wish list as a surgeon, people would tell you, or just kind of, tell your best friend, hey, if you're dealing with this, here's some ways that you might want to be able to describe it to your surgeon or your doctor that may be treating you?
Yes, that's a great question, because a lot of times I say that as a specialist or a surgeon, you're really a detective. You're taking in the clues that people give you, and so as great a set of clues as you can get is most ideal. So in terms of the pain, best descriptors that I look for are: is it dull and achy, or is it sharp and shooting? Is it numbness and tingling? These words kind of tip off the person you're talking to or the specialist you're talking to think, is this nerve pain? Is this arthritic? Is this an acute injury or something that's torn? So all these words become very important. Also paying attention to bruising and swelling and redness, all those things too also tip us off to other things like infections or problems like that.
That's great advice. And then what I'd like to do is also help people understand, when you are talking to a specialist, a doctor, a surgeon about your pain, it's important that we recognize that pain can also take an emotional toll on patients in general. How do you deal with that when you're dealing with someone who either it's an acute, issue, something that's a little bit more more regular or chronic. How are you as a medical professional dealing with that emotional side of patients' needs?
Yeah, that's an awesome question, Del. And I think that a lot of times as a specialist, it becomes very challenging because you are not only dealing with a person's pathology and you're taking in those clues that we were talking about, you're trying to diagnose and treat them appropriately, but it's really important to account for their emotional state. And I take that into account in a big way because some things are handled very easily and very straightforward. In other cases, things are a little bit more complex. So to me, it becomes very important because perhaps you have a complicated issue that's going to require surgery and you're going to have to be off your foot for several weeks. In this situation, I want to understand your emotional state. I want to understand your support network, who's there to help you. You're going to be very vulnerable. And in addition to that, I always like to empower my patients with as much information and knowledge as possible because they're not a passive participant in their recovery process. They're actually very active. And I want them to be an active participant because we're going to be working together towards a common goal. And in addition to that, we have to make sure that our goals are in line and our expectations are on the same page. So communication and all of that extra stuff that you're talking about is actually very vital to the recovery process.
I think that's excellent to hear. I mean, I think people may either have had bad experiences in the past with some of their medical experts or their team, if you will. So we kind of think about this as, not a fun or exciting, moment of our lives, but truly it can be very, very much a strategic partnership with your care team. I've heard people call them care teams, where if especially the doctor and the medical team really understand maybe a little bit more about what that person's feeling, it really opens up the dialogue a lot more. And I know I've had personal experiences in my life, whether it's myself or a family member who's worked with the care team, where you can tell there's a sense of empathy, which then I think builds up confidence and then also gets on the path to recovery a lot sooner, because there's not a lot of questions that are still left out there trying to be figured out, because we really are treating this as a partnership. And I think that's what I've heard you say. I think what I hear you saying is that emotional impact when it comes to any type of injury is very important for you and your team there at Wake Baptist Forest Health.
Definitely. And I would say I could speak for, all of my colleagues, the support staff I work with amazing front office staff, everyone from the front office staff to the MAs and the nurses that I work with. Everyone is attuned to that. And that takes a special attention from every member of the team.
Yeah, I would just also throw out, with everything else that's going on in the world right now, all the extra stresses, having an injury is not fun. It's never fun, but certainly with all the other things that are going on in life right now. Right. And of course, people right now are super scared maybe, and certainly a little bit more stressed out about COVID. So obviously you guys are open and operated and you are following proper safety guidelines. I know if anyone goes to any of the fantastic content or web pages that you guys have at Wake Baptist Forest Health, you guys are, I would say, not overly communicating, but you're definitely making sure that COVID is on the top of mind of every single communication that has to deal with any kind of medical treatment. So I know in your practice, either in Lexington or in Winston-Salem, I know you guys are following some very strict and very important COVID policies.
Yes, and this ties back also to our administration, who's been working hard, our leadership, as well as Dr. Ohl, who's been giving great updates from infectious disease about this. So you can always link back to Wake Health's page on Facebook to get his awesome updates too.
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to them, because when this first started as a local, neighborhood sports store with a huge dynamic online presence, the world flipped on us very quickly, as it did for a lot of folks. And there were a lot of questions and answers and a lot of news outlets putting out a lot of information. We're so proud to have a partnership with Wake Forest Baptist Health, because we were able to really just, I think at one point we pulled over your COVID page to help our own customers and our own staff understand, how to understand this, this pandemic. So
That's
the
wonderful.
content you guys were really putting together was amazing, and in the beginning we shared a lot of it. So I encourage anyone out there, we've got folks from all over the country, watching and following us, and certainly customers all over the country. But if you are looking for a good source of real, genuine information on COVID, definitely check out Wake Forest Baptist Health. You guys have done a superb job there.
Awesome.
All right, well, let's jump in. If you're ready, let's jump into some questions.
Sounds great. Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, well, so as I mentioned before, when we were getting ready for the show, we got a lot of questions. We have a lot of runners, we have a lot of walkers, we got a lot of folks in the Omega Nation, if you will,
Sure.
that are like the topic of plantar fasciitis came up in so many questions that I had to collectively pull them together, because otherwise we would do 2 hours on nothing but getting different answers on plantar fasciitis. So I just wanted to start with some common themes that I saw in some of the questions. And the first one, just in case there are folks that are out there that may be dealing with it and don't know it, or have never realized this is something to be watching out for, can you share with everyone kind of the knowledge around, or what is plantar fasciitis and how is it treated?
Sure. So plantar fasciitis is an irritation of the bottom of the heel, in essence, and it sometimes can go into the arch as well. Underneath your foot, you have 4 muscle layers and then these 3 bands of fascia known as your plantar fascia. They can get very irritated with repetitive motion, or with walking, especially the first couple steps that you're taking. And oftentimes, there's a lot of different ways to treat it, which includes stretching exercises, making sure you have good supports in your shoes in terms of arch supports, and then good shoe wear as well. And there's other modalities that can be done in the office too, including injections in the area and things like that too.
Yeah, I mean, as you know, we've talked about this. We see a lot of runners and walkers talk about plantar fasciitis, mainly because we do work with a number of podiatrists that are out there, or folks in orthopedics that will actually send their customers, or send their patients, I'll say, to Omega, because we definitely, we want to make sure that they're fitted correctly. And so we had that ongoing conversation. So I love the fact that we've partnered in a lot of ways with local medical offices, so that when folks are dealing with that level of pain, or that, I would say, irritation, they can always, there are remedies when it comes to comfort and support, so that you don't necessarily have to be inactive. You can kind of work through some of that pain a little bit more before it gets to the point where you have to really now start treating it. And then, is it avoidable? I mean, is there ways that you can avoid it? I mean, I think I probably answered some of that in some of the smarter things that you can do in footwear, but what are some ways that you tell people that they can avoid it?
I tell them to really focus on stretching exercises, especially before and after, really massaging and working some of those intrinsic muscles in the foot that originate and end in the foot. All the things we just covered, good arch supports, so that when you step down, your foot kind of flattens out like this. So we want to maintain that architecture, with a good arch support in your shoe, and then just good form to your shoe, ensuring that you're replacing your shoes at an appropriate interval level and not running through on these beat up shoes. So that becomes important as well.
Great. I'm going to jump into our Facebook comments here. Because we have a couple of new questions that added on. I know we already collected a bunch of them, but I wanted to make sure that we grab these that are sitting out here in Facebook, because we want to thank folks for watching. So I'm coming into the screen so I can read better. So Justin says, for the doctor, can you have tendonitis and gout in your ankle at the same time, and what's the best way to treat it?
Sure. So that's a great question. Oftentimes, gout is a condition where you have difficulty processing certain materials called purines, and they can be high content in certain types of foods. That could be red meats, certain types of seafood, beer, alcohol. So these are all things that have difficulty in processing. With that, it oftentimes affects smaller joints. So one of the most affected joints are the great toe joint. It doesn't always affect the ankle, and a lot of times that's joint can be red, hot, and swollen and highly, highly sensitive. So knowing a family history is often helpful too. It can, however, affect different tendons and ligaments too. So it's a good question. But a lot of times tendonitis is more a repetitive issue. More so in the Achilles tendon, we say tendinosis because it's an ongoing chronic type of issue. So there definitely can be a combination of the two things, but I would kind of get a more better workup and, an understanding of when and how it flares up to treat it appropriately.
Sure. And I think this next question from Holly in our Facebook comments is very much in line with what you said. She says, what's the best way to treat Achilles tendonitis?
Sure. So good stretching exercises are paramount. This also becomes really important with heel pain too, because the more motion you have at your Achilles and your ankle, the less stress you have on the bottom of your foot and your heel. Also ensuring in some cases elevating the heel slightly or having a heel lift in your shoe can take off some of that irritation on the Achilles tendon. Any sort of sneaker that has a little bit more built up on the bottom on that heel part will sort of give into the deformity or the contracture because you can only stretch so much. There's also over-the-counter medications that you can take, either topical things you can rub on the area, or you can take anti-inflammatories if you don't have any problems with your kidneys or any issues processing with your stomach and that sort of thing.
Yep. I just want to give a quick shout out. Thank you, Holly, for that question, and Justin for that question. Lisa's got a good one in there that I'll get to in a second. Lisa, thank you for joining us. Sean he just has a great question that says, you mentioned the number for the Wake call center. Can you mention it again? And then, of course, I want to say hello to Valerie, who says, hey, Dr. G.
Oh, nice. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Valerie, and everyone else that's tuning in. Yes, you can call 336-716-WAKE. That's 336-716-WAKE, or 716-8092. So 336-716-8092. Those are two different ways to get plugged in. And the call center is fantastic about getting you situated and getting you geared to whatever specialist you're trying to get to. So thank you for that question.
Absolutely, Sean. Thanks for that question. Hopefully you're not in pain, but certainly if you have some needs that you want to explore, ways to feel better about certain things, call that number. Lisa has a quick question, and this is again related to the plantar fascia. She said last month she hurt herself or tore it while she was playing tennis, and unfortunately she put in the parentheses a loud snap noise, which never sounds good. I'm not a medical professional, but that does not sound good. It's better now for the most part, but what are some shoes that she can get for walking and for tennis? And what's the best way to rehab and strengthen? How can she rehab and strengthen with exercises? I'll let you take the second one, and I'll talk a little bit more about the shoes. But I'll let you take is there ways to self-rehab and strengthen your injury?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Lisa, a lot of times she's a little bit lucky in the sense that there are situations where plantar fasciitis can a lot of times be taken care of with some of these things that I was talking about. When it's very extreme or something else is going on, I'm always akin to paying attention to if there's any nerve abnormalities associated with it, some numbness, tingling, where the pain is, because there are other issues that can overlie the plantar fascial problem. And in someone who's not progressing, there can sometimes be a partial tear. And in Lisa's case, she may have had that snap where that partial tear kind of finally tore completely. In some cases, when we're not progressing with the conservative options, they may require surgery. In her case, now that tight band has been released, she's probably going to start experiencing more comfort. So same things as before, I would just continue that maintenance. So that's going to mean stretching out, massaging that area, especially the plantar heel, making sure that your shoe has a really good cushion in there that also doesn't give out. There's a number of different shoes that are really cushiony, but once you start walking on them, they kind of flatten out. Ensuring that your shoes are turned around at an appropriate level. It depends on what source you read, but it can be anywhere from 500 to 800 kilometers, to 300 to 500 miles. It can be sooner than that too, depending on your activity level and your impact. If you're just walking or if you're doing high performance running and that sort of thing. So you got to use your best judgment too on that. And really focusing in on when you're doing those stretching exercises, whether they're against the wall in terms of your Achilles, making sure your foot is straight on and in line as well, are some of the really good stretches that can be done.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I've heard you say it a couple of times, and I hope people are really taking it to heart, because I love learning new things, and you're teaching me a lot. But one of the things that seems like a no-brainer is we tend to tell people to stretch, and people think they know what stretching is. But I don't know if I've ever heard anyone say stretch your heel, like massage it, stretch it out. So I think that's a great takeaway, Dr. Gangopadhyay, because I really don't think, I think people will assume that if you're stretching maybe your leg or you're, maybe
Right.
kind of doing
That's
an
true.
ankle stretch or whatever, they think that all of that is going in aligned with the same stretch. But you're saying, if I heard you correctly, really work at that heel, really kind of
Yeah.
stretch it out, massage, kind of manual massage, or manual movements with your heel, which I don't think people, I know I have never done that. I assume that if I do one quick leg stretch, the whole thing's taken care of.
Right. It's true. It forces you to kind of change the way you're thinking or look at this area a little bit closer. Just kind of goes in line with how we sometimes take that area really for granted. So yes, I'm glad we're getting it on people's radar.
Absolutely. And Lisa, just from a shoe perspective, I'm not going to make any assumptions, but I will tell you one thing that we see a lot of is folks tend to love tennis that don't play in tennis shoes. So if you are playing in tennis shoes, you're already well beyond with choosing the right shoe. But there are folks, and I'm guilty of it, that a buddy will ask, hey, you want to go play tennis? And I won't even think about changing my shoes. I'll just go play in whatever running pair of shoes I have. And they're just not made the same. You want something that's got a little bit more of a thicker sole that really can take that court, especially a hard court traction. Moving side to side is a really big indicator of the fact that you really should change up your shoes. We don't tend to run side to side when we're in a running shoe. It's more forward movement. So when you're looking for the right shoe, a tennis shoe is really built for that side to side kind of action. So that's number one. So you may already have been doing that, so I don't want to make an assumption, but I know there are a lot of customers out there that we deal with that, they will make an investment in a running shoe and think that that will carry them through training, in workouts and tennis and any other sport. There really are specialty elements to a particular sport when it comes to like tennis. So that's number one. Make sure you're playing in the right tennis shoe. You can certainly go to Mega Sports. We've got a great line of world-class brands that you can try on and see what feels most comfortable to you. And then the other thing that I think I heard maybe that's kind of circling around is that there are some orthotic support that we do offer at Mega Sports, because a lot of the shoes that we get, you have to remember, these manufacturers are making shoes to kind of last for the masses, but that doesn't mean they're individualized for your needs. So when you go to Mega Sports, we do have fitting machines, or what we call fitting laser technology machines that can actually scan your foot and make proper recommendations. If you've never thought about an orthotic insole, I can't talk right now. If you've never thought about an insole or an orthotic insole, definitely check it out. If you've definitely got some pain, you'll be amazed at some of the extra elements that your shoe just is not prepared to give you, that your individual foot may need. So I'll let my active play experts help you, Lisa. They're a lot more knowledgeable when it comes to what you may individually need. And I go into any of our stores, get a free foot scan, and you'll be amazed at the level of intel that you're going to get just for yourself that you can actually take with you. And then, of course, our expert can easily make some recommendations. They may say this shoe is actually going to be better for your foot type. You may need extra support because of your arch. Those are the types of things that, really that one-to-one relationship with your neighborhood sports store can really help. So hopefully that gave you some level of an answer. But my number one tip is make sure, number one, you're playing in a tennis shoe.
Yes, agreed.
All right. And then we got some other questions I'm going to get to in a second in our chat, but I'm going to jump into these other questions that came in. Dr. Gangopadhyay, we've got Melissa from Raleigh. She says, after dancing ballet professionally for years, I have put a lot of wear on my feet and toes. I've been in and out of podiatrist offices for a while now, including having knee surgery, she said, most of her life. Her daughter is now dancing and just wanted to know, is there a better way for her to take care of her feet and toes? Is there any advice that you can give this concerned mom?
Sure. I have a particular like for this question, I guess, because I have a history of dance since childhood, and ballet in particular, as well as hip hop, jazz, and modern. But for a brief period of time in high school, I did pointe. So this becomes really important because I actually do take care of a number of ballet dancers as well. In terms of ballet and on pointe, there is a number of extreme forces that are going through your entire body to center yourself on your toes and to be on this wooden box in essence. So we can agree that a lot of unusual forces are going through and very extreme forces as well. So proper care and strengthening of your foot and ankle, whether that's through TheraBands, we have to get the ligaments, the tendons, all those intrinsic muscles and ligaments I was talking about that originate and end in the foot become very important. In addition to that, just good care, bandaging your toes if you need to, also ensuring that your nails are okay. Because you can get very bad ingrown toenails and problems like that too. So paying attention to those things is important as well.
I love it. And I love learning a little bit more about Dr. Gangopadhyay, former ballet, and I heard hip hop. That's what I'm interested in.
Oh yeah, just a tad. Yeah. Throw that in there.
We're going to have some special show coming up, showcase.
Oh dear. Yeah.
I want to jump over back into our Facebook comments because I heard you say ingrown toenail, and Vincent actually put a really, I thought, thoughtful question up that said during COVID, obviously everyone's been self-isolating, and his wife would normally get pedicures twice a month, but obviously with COVID, she hasn't been able to in 4 years. I mean, 4 years, 4 months. We hope it doesn't go on 4 years.
Oh, thank goodness. Yeah, I hope not.
4 months. Is there any advice for ingrown toenails and treating it at home? And then he also wanted to give you a shout out. It said, great advice, Dr. G, you're the best.
Oh, he's the
even
best.
Before you answered.
Thank you, Vincent Lively. Yes.
Yeah, before you even answered, he said you're great. So.
Oh, he's so good. So I would say that there are a number of things. Initially, if you're dealing with any sort of ingrown toenail, pay attention to any purulent drainage, any redness, warmth, anything you're noticing in there. You can clip back the nail, and you're going to be very careful on the sides there. And you want to get in with the doc as quickly as you can because you don't want the infection to get worse. But initially, warm water, Epsom salt soaks, those can be helpful. Triple antibiotic ointment, that sort of thing.
Fantastic. And I see another Gangopadhyay in our comments here. It says, thanks to Omega Sports and Dr. Gangopadhyay for offering such a great talk like this. I am learning a lot. So just a quick shout out to, awesome. I'm assuming someone you're related to?
Yeah, that would be Mom. Yeah.
Okay. Hi, Mom. Thanks for watching. You have a fantastic, just amazing daughter. I'll tell you, she won't be doing this show for long. She'll be with Anderson Cooper pretty soon.
Too funny.
Yep.
Oh my goodness, Del, you're so sweet.
In the prep for this, I'll just tell Mom, myself and our team have been blown away with your daughter's expertise and her sense of empathy for patients. She's just been fantastic. So I can't tell you how honored we are to be able to work with her. And then of course, all the folks over at Wake Forest Baptist Health have been fantastic, but we've been impressed with Paula here. All right. And then again, you've got another, it looks like Manash says, great advice, Dr. G. Oh, so another nice. Bit of love there.
Awesome.
And tell me if I said the name wrong.
Mana Shankar. It looks like Chatterjee, maybe there.
Okay, there
I
you
can't
go.
see the end.
There
yes.
You go. All right, so let's jump back into our questions that have been previously submitted. Tiffany from Charlotte, she has a very, I think, interesting question that probably a lot of people are dealing with. And I jokingly said I never thought I'd be on a show talking about bunions, but her question is there is there any real way to avoid getting bunions?
Sure, that's a really great question. So bunions come with a couple different aspects to them. First and foremost, there is somewhat of a hereditary component to them. So you'll hear people say, oh, I got mom's feet or I got dad's feet. So there's definitely somewhat of a hereditary component. In addition to that, there aren't necessarily ways to get bunions from shoes, but shoes can definitely exacerbate that problem. So high heels, pointed shoes as well, those can always be very problematic. So even when choosing a shoe, whether it's a running shoe or a dress shoe, you want to make sure that toe box is wide enough. In certain cases, these can be handled conservatively. In other cases where it becomes too much of a nuisance, then it requires surgery. And you want to see a foot and ankle specialist who's going to choose the right procedure, because we don't want a recurrence. If you're going to go through all of this and the recovery, that becomes extremely important. But we're never operating on something for cosmesis. More so the pain is what we're centered on.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Now, we've gone over an hour. Don't worry, guys. We've got more questions. So thank you for joining us and continuing to follow us. We're going to keep going on with some questions here. This one I thought was really, it touches me because it's near and dear to, family members that deal with this. So Alicia from Wilmington, I wanted to make sure your question got Dr. G's attention here. It says, my father was recently diagnosed with diabetes. I'm worried about his foot care. How early is too early to seek out a podiatrist?
So I would say, first off, Alicia is amazing because she's an advocate for her father. So we need more people like that. Secondly, it's a great question because it's never too early. Diabetes affects our bodies in many different ways. It can affect our large organs. It can also affect the nerves furthest from our bodies. So keeping those blood sugar levels at a lower level becomes important, because we don't want to have destruction of those nerves, especially the ones in our toes. Those are my patients who don't feel anything, who step on a tack or something like that, and it creates an ulcer that then leads to an infection, where I'm having to talk to them about an amputation of losing part of their foot. That's a big part of what I do. So I take that just as seriously as I do at many of the other pathologies we were talking about. So checking those feet daily, moisturizing those feet, because diabetes can really dry out your skin a lot too, and we don't want fissures to occur and then infection to breed in there. So I think that's wonderful. And at a minimum, a yearly check with your podiatrist is ideal, and it may need to be sooner than that.
Yep, I think that's important. I think one of the main things that I know I've done in my life with my mom is to make sure that you're checking their feet, making sure that they are moisture, there's proper moisture, that they're, not dry or cracking, because again, because of some of that nerve challenges, they may not know that they've stepped on something, or that skin cracks, and then all of a sudden you have an infection, which then can lead to bigger issues. So I think that's a great question, Alicia, and a great answer from Dr. Gangopadhyay. Sarah from Raleigh says, as a new half marathon fan and runner who found joy in running in her 40s, I'm putting my feet through a lot of training as I'm getting older and my love for running grows with me. What should I consider when seeking better foot health? I love this question.
Yeah, this is great. Yeah, Dell loves this, right? So first off, that is awesome. Expanding your horizons in your 40s, or whether it's your 20s or your 60s, that's always a great thing. There might be something new and a new way to be active that you didn't even realize was there. So we really want to commend her on that. In addition to that, there's a couple really important things to take into account when you're deciding on shoe wear or how to strengthen yourself and bring forth the best version of yourself when you're being active. So there's 5 main factors when you're a runner. I would think your body mass, in terms of your body force going through these feet. It can be upwards of 1.5 to 4 times your body weight. The surface that you're running on. So is she running on concrete? Is she running on a treadmill? There's even evidence-based medicine to look at the different surfaces and the force that's going through them. So you want to choose a good surface too. The duration. So are you a sprinter, or are you doing a long half marathon or a marathon, for those of us who are intimidated by those types of things? And your foot type. So you'll notice that some people, they wear their shoes on the outside because they're more high arched and they hit the ground a certain way, versus people that are really flat footed because they have more surface area hitting the ground. And then of course your strike. So how you hit the ground. As you know, Dell, there are many people that specifically train on either a hindfoot strike, a forefoot strike, or a midfoot strike. So those areas of your shoe become very important in addition to doing all your stretches and stuff. So, yeah.
Absolutely. You nailed it right there. I mean, I think when our experts are talking to folks that are either first time training for a marathon or a half marathon, we tend to talk about the distance and the wearability and the performance of a shoe. A lot of folks assume that they just need comfort, but actually you may need comfort with cushioning. You may actually need less cushioning because you're actually going for longer miles. So it's not about speed, it's more about distance. So certainly, we love that your love for running is growing. Certainly, I think the love of any sport requires working with a team of folks that understand that love of sport, that can help you think about the things that you don't necessarily think about. Right now, you're in that enthusiasm stage where you're just buying things and you're getting things that your friend has, or a colleague or someone in your run club has, but really kind of building that expert team so that you can have a sustainable, long fandom or running career, if you will, when you're out there trying and training for these marathons. I think that's a good thing, and we welcome people to come into our store to understand that. Obviously, I'm going to say again, proper fit is important. Talking, as Dr. Gangopadhyay actually said, talking about where you're running, what are you running with, what types of miles are you putting on your shoes, when's the last time you replaced your shoe. Those are all things that I know. And then more importantly, I will also add on, what are you doing in recovery? Because you're not running 24 hours a day. So what are you doing to recover so that you can get back into those miles either the next day or so? So those are all great questions that we tend to have conversations about in our store. So we welcome you to come in and talk to one of our experts as well. All right, we're going to jump into a next question with Jones. I guess his name is Jones from Greensboro. Says, I have had heel pain this year more than ever. It's usually something I can work through my runs with, but it's getting quite painful and requires me to stay off of it for days at a time. I don't think it's fractured or sprained, but what else could it be? Now, I'm going to throw out there, is this that plantar fasciitis that might be flaring up?
So this is an important question. And just like you said, sometimes I really always like to reiterate that not all heel pain is created the same, right? So the location becomes really important. Is it the bottom of the heel that Jones is experiencing, or the back of the heel? Is there nerve related symptoms like numbness or tingling or problems like that? For him to be having so much severe discomfort, of course, we sometimes have to rest and ice and elevate, but it may be time to get in and come and see somebody, more importantly, because a lot of times your story and your physical exam tell you some things, but sometimes imaging, whether it's an x-ray, can tell us a little bit more information, especially if this is some repetitive stress and that sort of thing. You could be dealing with stress reaction. You could be dealing with a bursa in the back of your heel or along your Achilles area too, or the plantar fasciitis that we were talking about, or some sort of partial tear or something like that. So I would really encourage him to get in and be seen.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I've learned from you and our relationship here is that heel pain is not something to play around with. I know as a medical surgeon, I know there's a lot of, when to do heel pain or heel surgery is a major operation and is not something that is done lightly. So everything that a individual can do to take care of heel pain and discomfort early on is always the best remedy, really, with any injury, but especially when it comes to heel pain, because when you get to that point where now you're dealing with doctors that say we may need to consider surgery, that is a very I heard you say a very not an easy decision to make, even as a surgeon.
Right, absolutely. So we don't take it lightly, and we're very careful to exhaust all our conservative options, because sometimes it can be limited in terms of surgical options that are very reliable and true in terms of getting you out of your heel pain. But again, the nature of your heel pain and where it's located and what else is involved can really gear your podiatric surgeon or your foot and ankle specialist in terms of what to do. So
Great. I'm going to go back into our Facebook comments here. I wanted to just
Okay.
quickly jump into Vincent. Vincent says, is there a particular brand of running shoe you recommend? I understand that the overall fit of each are different, but what brand is suited for runners? Well, today, Vincent, we've got a fantastic Nike. No, I'm just joking. I think it really depends on kind of what type of runner you are. I will tell you, just from an Omega standpoint, we only carry brands that we know our runners love. So we don't just go after the hottest, newest, fantastic, most sparkly, running shoe that's out there. So our main stable, if you will, is going to be Brooks. We sell a lot of Brooks. We have a lot of Brooks fans that come specifically to Omega. So Brooks makes a fantastic. They're known for their cushioning. You certainly, if you've never heard of Hoka Oni Oni, it's HOKA ONE. I think I celebrate the fact when I was able to come to Omega, I hadn't heard of Hoka Oni Oni until I came to Omega or came to North Carolina and fell in love with Omega. But that is a brand that is like soaring. And I know medical professionals love Hoka Oni Oni because of their superior comfort, especially with a lot of that cushion. It's very important that people on their feet a lot do that. But Hoka is one that I would say is the most surprising one that people are now discovering. And then, of course, On Running, we are the #1 retailer in the world when it comes to a very specific program that occurred during COVID, kind of the shutdown of our stores. On Running worked with their local run specialty stores, and we were able to accelerate at a very fast pace, and we kind of took the world. And we sold more Ons during the COVID shutdown in the beginning of COVID timeframe than any other retailer in the world. So we really stand behind our brand. So I can't pick one because I'd be in trouble. But I would say from a pricing perspective, this one right here, this Renew Run is a great one for only $89. And then, of course, Vincent, I would encourage you to make sure that you are shopping or getting onto our email list. We do a lot of stories about particular shoes. We always have great offers, great deals. So I promise you, any brand that you shop at Omega, whether it's Mazzoni, Saucony, Brooks, On, Hoka, all of those brands are truly tested by our own active play experts and the run groups that we work with time and time again. So you can't go wrong if you buy it at Omega. You know that we've tested it out, and it really is something that a lot of our runners have said over 40. We're in our 42nd year of business. That these are the brands they love. Okay, and then just a quick question from Lisa Prather, who is taking it back to podiatry, so I can stop talking about running shoes. She just wants to know, what's a good way to pick a podiatrist? I think that's a good question. A lot of people don't know what to look for.
Yes, I think that's a really good question, like you said. And in this digital age, you can be geared to some directions and then others. So being able to just even go to the Wake Forest website and being able to see the list of different doctors is helpful, and get to see their videos and the things that they specialize in, so you understand what they do. Also, just simply word of mouth. I think Dr. Lucy kind of highlighted this last week. Now that I've been in practice a few more years, I've realized the importance and being in 2 locations of being able to talk to people and say to them, hey, do you know somebody? Or, whether my specialty or I get to interact with other specialists that operate at my facility who are maybe in completely different areas of the body, or in general surgery or internal medicine and things. So oftentimes your existing practitioners may have a doctor that they work with closely, or your internal med docs and that sort of thing. So that's where staying connected with friends, family, and your existing practitioners becomes very important as well.
Yep, great answer. Thank you, Lisa, for that question. Sorry, I got to do it to you. Vincent, hey, those Hokas that you're interested in, definitely go for them, man. I'm telling you, right now, just remember Rincon The new Rincons are on sale right now, so definitely check out the Rincons. And if you are truly going to be a Hoka fan, you've got to look at the Clifton. We've got a new one, the Clifton 7, I think is coming out on August 1st. I apologize. I had to do a little shoe business.
He had
there.
to. He couldn't help himself. Yeah. And I like the that also keeping in mind, you mentioned some great brands that different foot types wear differently. So my high arched patients, there's certain feet that should be in a shoe that has a little bit more attention to that, whereas a flatter foot, some of the brands you mentioned are really good for those as well. So with having that attention and going somewhere that you can be fitted appropriately, one type of shoe that works for me may not work for Dell and vice versa. So
yep. And when you talk to an active play expert, they're going to quickly be able to look at you and see, are you in need of neutral support? Do you need more of a stability shoe? There's differences if you say you're going to go run trails. We definitely want to put you in a better trail shoe versus just a regular street shoe. So there's a lot of things that our active play experts can look at, and most brands have different comfort for arch support. So we'll definitely make sure we gear you in the right direction. Then of course we also have orthotics that can also aid in some of that extra comfort that folks may need. All right, I'm going to jump into one of our last questions, or a couple more questions here, close to the end. This one is from, I love this one. This one is from Achy Bones. So Achy Bones sent in a question that says, "Hi, Dr. Gangopadhyay. I was hoping you could recommend OTC orthotics and shoes in solid black for a nursing student with overpronation. Mine is only due to hyperflexibility. So when I am standing on my feet, they go flat like a platypus. Plus my feet and knees are always cracking and popping. Please advise." Now, I don't expect you, Dr. Gangopadhyay, to recommend a shoe, but can we help with someone who maybe is dealing with hyperflexibility or the cracking of the feet and the knees that someone may be experiencing?
Yes. So your orthotic and your shoe gear choice, I always liken this because it's just as important as I tell people you wouldn't skip out on a bad mattress, right, for your back. So the same concept when it comes to your shoe gear and your insoles. So having a very flat foot, which is what it sounds like we're describing, comes with a kind of host of different challenges because you want to have some medial arch support in there. And there's different insoles. There's a wide variety of great brands that you can choose. But again, you have to choose them according to you. So someone that has a very flat foot is used to walking around flat for a long time, even in those cases where they have to undergo a flat foot reconstruction that I have to perform. I'm very careful to ensure that we're not overly increasing their arch because they've walked around like that for so long, right? So choosing an insole that has some medial arch support and testing out to see what you can sustain and what feels okay for you when you have that overpronation. Also, if you're starting to experience issues at your hips and your knees and other areas, I really do encourage being seen by one of our wonderful orthopedic colleagues to make sure there's nothing else going on so that we're not putting extra strain on those other areas too.
Yeah, I'll also chime in on the footwear perspective, Achy Bones. I would also say make sure you're looking at recovery. I mean, Mega Sports has great recovery sandals as well. So, you may be going from work or activity, and then maybe when you think you're being less active, perhaps just walking around the neighborhood or going out, and you're putting on a flip flop or you're putting on something that's maybe a little bit more casual that really isn't designed for great arch support. You might want to consider some type of recovery sandal. And there's a lot of great recovery sandals that are out there. We've talked about them on Mega Sports. We've talked about them on this show. We had Luke from UFOs talk with us recently, talking about the arch support that their foam recovery sandals offer. They are the #1 recovery sandal that we offer. So definitely check those out. Recovery is just as important as wearing the shoes that you need to just do maybe your job or the fun activities that you do. The recovery part seems to sometimes get overlooked because at that point we're doing anything and anything to just slip on a pair of shoes and run out the house. But a good recovery sandal could be that go-to shoe that actually will help you with not only your feet and your ankles, but also kind of with that performance foam, kind of help you stand better and kind of align your knees a little bit better. And then I wanted to just quickly go back over, I got to do it. Brian The recent trend that seems to be happening right now is that running shoes are made more narrow. Any suggestions for a wide toe box? We can actually add a few more suggestions for this, but one thing that came to mind is check out the Brooks Running Transcend 7. We just recently did a quick video on it. The reason I say that one, there are other shoes that are similar to this, but that one has more of that sock inside the shoe, if you will. So it does allow for more toe room. So if you are in need of wide toe box areas, the shoes that actually have almost like an inside shoe inside of it, like a Transcend 7 from Brooks, would be a great suggestion. But certainly go to any of our neighborhood sports stores and just let them know that you're looking for something that has a little bit more room for a wide toe box. It doesn't necessarily mean you need a wide shoe. There are shoes that actually have the snug fit inside the shoe, but then allow extra room to kind of stretch out a little bit. I don't know if that made any sense, this little stretch out. But then Lisa also made a good point, and I wanted to get you to weigh in on this, Dr. Gangopadhyay. She talked about socks being an important element. I know at Omega we preach socks. I did not preach it in this show yet, but I love that Lisa brought it up. There is a wonderful trend when it comes to socks right now, because they are now making performance socks. Socks are not just that barrier for, I think folks probably think about socks right now for a barrier for sweat and a barrier for odor, and not to make your shoes funky, but they really are now making arch support, and there's extra padding, if you will, or extra threading, if you will, in certain areas to kind of aid in folks' needs that they have for their shoes. So socks, Lisa, are very, very important, and there are lots of brands out there that we've tried and tested and we carry, like Features, Balega, Thurlows. Those are all great brands. Xperia, all great brands that are made for very active individuals that are out there. Dr. Gangopadhyay, do you talk a lot about socks, or like remind folks when it comes to not just the footwear, but sock wear?
Yeah, I think sometimes the focus is so much on footwear and insoles that this is a really great point that Lisa brings up, and you can gather so much support. Sometimes this becomes important in my diabetic patients as well, and I'm so glad you brought this back on even my radar, because I've noticed there are certain socks that I gravitate to when I know it's going to be a long day in the operating room. And I just know this is going to be much better than that other one, So replacing these socks at an appropriate interval level too becomes really important. So I want to thank Lisa for that great question and that reminder that we can also get some support from our socks too.
Yeah, Lisa, again, think about the brands like Features, Balega, Thurlows. Those are all great brands, really made for performance and comfort. They make various sizes and styles. So if you are dealing with plantar fascia or fasciitis, I will tell you there are socks that are specifically designed to help with that, so that you don't have to necessarily be in pain, or just to prevent additional pain. Check your neighborhood sports store for that. And then I want to end with this question, and I think this is a fun question that we can play around with, Dr. Gangopadhyay. Sure. Bobby from your area of the woods there, Winston-Salem, wants you to tell everyone, what is better for you, running or walking?
Running or walking. So this is a great question. So like I've said before, I deal with a wide variety of different types of patients, I guess. So I would say that there's patients and there's people that we deal with on a daily basis who love being outdoors and love being active, and maybe are avid runners. And then there's some of us who really the only running we do is away from our problems, right? So I think that a lot of times we can identify with both segments of the world. With that being said, being active is really at the forefront. So two main things I would say. One is listening to your body and knowing your abilities and your capabilities. The 20-year-old version of yourself versus that 65-year-old version of yourself may still be able to be active, but that activity may change into different type of activity, or a shorter intervals and shorter intensity levels. With that being said, you're still capable, you're just doing it in a different way. So whether it's running or whether it's walking and you just prefer to go for a stroll, whatever your activity level is and whatever you enjoy. You might be built like a runner, but you really just like walking. You don't like to get sweaty, So yeah. winning, right? So keeping those two things in mind becomes really important, and choosing your shoe gear accordingly. But whatever your activity level is, at the center of podiatry and orthopedics is that motion is life. So there is that sense of use it or lose it, right? We don't want to not do anything and become stiff, but we also want to listen to our body. So I would kind of bring that to the forefront and as a reminder to kind of have the best version of yourself and take care of your wellness and whatever capability that is.
Yeah, I think I love what you just said. I think movement is key. We certainly at Omega Sports, I think people assume that we are all about running, but we really are about movement. Since I've joined, I've really worked with our active play experts, and I've uncovered that we have such a wide variety of customers. We have anything from youth sports that are out there running and playing soccer and training for baseball, to true runners, to just occasional runners, to those folks that are just going out there looking for shoes that feel better when they go walking. It really is about movement. And I think what you've been able to highlight today, Dr. Gangopadhyay, is that it really being more thoughtful about your foot care. Again, talking about stretching more, stretching your heel. We're not just saying stretch your leg and your ankles and your calves. We're talking about actually working those heels, working your feet, giving them some love and some attention. Can go a long way. Understanding your pain is very important. So when things are sore to painful, then really understanding when's the time to start asking the right questions and start seeking out better support. Making sure that you're using all of your experts that are around you, whether it be a neighborhood sports store or asking your friends for referrals for potential podiatry. Understanding that if you have medical conditions like diabetes or things that are hereditary, there may be some extra sensitivity around how you should be looking at your foot care. Those are all great things that I think that we were able to learn today. And I think it's been a fantastic, fantastic show.
Great. Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. I want to thank you and the Omega Sports team, Del, for creating this important series, this Ask a Doc series, really focused on people's wellness and really empowering them to be as active and fit in whatever form that may take. So I want to thank you for linking up with our wonderful health system to conduct this series.
Absolutely. You guys have been great partners, Wake Forest Baptist Health. Again, you guys have so many great experts. I know we're going to have you on future shows. I can't wait to have you in the store with us, talking with customers and answering questions. I think that'll be fun. So I'm going to give a quick shout out to everybody out there, Lisa, Vincent, Krishna, all the folks that have been joining us. Go ahead and give a virtual applause to Dr. Gangopadhyay for her fantastic day here.
Thank you.
A wealth of information she was able to share with us. We appreciate you taking the time this morning. You've got some folks already saying, Lisa says this has been fantastic. Thank you so much. Heading to Raleigh right now. Yes, that's what I like to hear. Vincent said, thank you so much for having such a knowledgeable doctor give such valuable advice today. Motion equals movement is life. We love that. So thank you so much for taking the time, Vincent, for joining the show, Lisa, and all the folks that joined us today. I know we had a little bit of a worldwide audience today, so I love that.
Yes. Thank you so much, everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. So Dr. Gangopadhyay, we are going to give you back the rest of your Saturday so you can enjoy it with your family. We will, of course, have this show loaded on our Facebook page so folks can rewatch it or share it. Continue to keep sharing it with other folks. If you thought this was valuable and knowledgeable or filled with a lot of knowledge, feel free to share it with your friends as soon as we end the show here, okay?
Thank you so much.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I think I cut her off. I apologize. Thank you again for joining us. Again, this is our Saturday Mega Wellness Show. We do this every Saturday morning. We have great experts. We're going to have more Ask a Doc experts joining us from Wake Forest Baptist Health in the upcoming weeks. And we wish you guys a fantastic weekend. Hopefully the storms are out of the way and we can get out there running and enjoying the weekend. You guys have a great day. Stay well, stay fit, stay active.